The end of the world has arrived, and you're there to document it. Or at least, that was the plan, anyway. This is 35mm. The 2016 project from Russian game designer Sergei Noskov, 35mm is a post-apocalyptic walking simulator. Noskov has also worked on The Light remake and Seventh Sector, and he does have a new game, Hail to the Rainbow, coming out later this year. 35mm is a self-published, largely solo affair, apart from some supporting voice acting and music work. It is not, however, a survival horror game, despite what the tags on Steam would have you believe. 35mm takes place in Russia in early 2014. Following a deadly pandemic caused by a mutated Ebola strain, most of humanity has either died or fled the city. Wildlife is reclaiming the countryside in man's absence, who is busy reverting to their baser instincts. Technical knowledge among the survivors is lacking, and those that do have electricity choose to lock themselves in their past or find a substance of choice to waste away the days with. You are Petrovich, a father just trying to get home, or at least what was once home. You're joined by an anonymous partner on your quest to get back to safety, and he does most of the talking for you while you silently narrate via subtitles. Character development between the pair is slim and is told mainly through flashbacks, which is disappointing but understandable for a solo developer. As stated earlier, 35mm is a walking simulator. Usually used as a pejorative for a first-person story experience with little gameplay, 35mm does easily fit this descriptor. I would describe it as very deliberate, however, channeling the language of the movies it's clearly drawing from. I personally see it as taking a lot of inspiration actually from Tarkovsky's Stalker, one of the classics of Russian cinema, which is available online on YouTube for free, should you choose to watch it.
Потом, когда все стихнет, ползите назад, к заставе. Утром подберут.
You could interpret the game to be reflective of the dissolution of the USSR post-1991, as so much post-apocalyptic media from Russia does touch on, as the very literal end of their world became reality. That's just my interpretation, however, and I might be reading a bit too much into it. In any case, as far as walking simulators go, you're typically left to explore environments at your own pace, which I do appreciate. There's snippets of lore to discover, conversations to overhear, some great visual storytelling. All these are the hallmarks of walking simulators, and 35mm is all that and more. The visuals are appropriately gloomy, and it makes great use of fog and lighting to stage an abandoned setting well. The houses are sparsely decorated, there's a subway platform reminiscent of a bygone era covered in dust, empty train tunnels with the only sound being a rotating emergency light. All these and more contribute to its excellent ambiance. It's unsettling at times, but I don't think it ever quite crosses the line into being outright horror, just spooky, if anything. The entire experience is helped by composer Dmitry Nikolaev and a library of classical music making use of ambient, moody soundscapes. 35mm's first half is methodical and tense, and overall pretty great. Unfortunately, it completely wastes the tension it's been building. Walking simulators are often derided as being boring and drawn out, and little more than interactive movies, among other criticisms. Perhaps in advance of this, 35mm inexplicably introduced combat and other mechanics midway through the game, many of which are used exactly once. It's a complete tonal shift for the game, and it isn't done very well either, and the tone shifts from scene to scene to scene, leaving you feeling disjointed as you make your way toward the city. As an example, there's a UV flashlight found underground used exactly once to solve a puzzle. There's a brief boating section, a sequence where you have to mill a concrete rod in order to open a bunker door, and more mechanics that are just introduced and then almost immediately discarded. It's scattershot at best and completely throws off the pacing of the game. It also leans very heavily on QTEs in later sections, but this is probably just a product of the time it was developed in, almost a decade at this point. The very name of the game, 35mm, is a bit of a misnomer. You'd think it would be a reference to a film camera, and it is. Petrovich does carry around a film camera with him, and he uses it to take a picture pretty early on in the game. You yourself can use it to take pictures, but there's no real point to it. You can only view those pictures from a sub-menu, as if it was an afterthought. The ending sequence, too, is immensely frustrating. There's no sense of mystery when you finally reach your home city near the end of the game, or sense of wonder. It's just a fetch quest. You have to find car batteries for this burglar so he can give you a lockpick so you can break into your own apartment. The entire plot grinds to a halt, so you can scour every corner of the city for car parts. And your reward? It's a cutscene that doesn't even feel justified, especially with how little development the characters are given. The ending sums up the entire game unintentionally. 35mm lurches forward haltingly, stopping and starting, unable to carry its own momentum for its 4-hour runtime. It never really fully commits to a genre, its own atmosphere, the gameplay mechanics, and you're left feeling frustrated and unfulfilled, wanting so much more out of a game that starts with such promise. Unsurprisingly, I cannot recommend 35mm. I only paid about $3 for it during a sale, and it's not a terribly expensive game to begin with, but it's just too uneven to really warrant your time. I've yet to play his other works, but it seems like 35mm was a bit of a learning experience for Noskov overall. If anything, it seems more of a proof of concept and like a game development tutorial that he published than anything. It's experimental, but as a game, it never quite comes together.
Много глупостей, некоторые из которых потом не можешь забыть и простить себе.
Thanks for watching. Take care of yourself, and we'll see you next time.